The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you back in. It's the Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you will get to our starting five shout-outs in the stream. You want to be a part of Hail Varsity Radio, can log on, Hail Varsity YouTube, like, subscribe, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, and can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Numbers along the Hail Varsity Radio Network, 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. And we'll get to some of the comments. We'll dive a little bit deeper into USC Nebraska. What to expect other than the unexpected on Saturday with Nebraska as a 9-point dog with a new offensive coordinator. The quarterback discussion point, Heinrich or Dillon. We'll see who gets the nod. We'll hear from Rule Thursday of this week, but I don't anticipate we'll have a declaration. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic going to be with us in about 15 minutes. Michael Bruntz with us from Husker 24/7 Sports. And then Matt Vrzal joins us. Papa Verz going to be in hour two. Let's get to it. Lots of odds and ends going on here. Apparently there is no Red Bull shortage, which is good. There's enough Red Bull around the community to keep Coach Holgorsen as that live wire, getting this offense ready to go. Elijah, is it going to be a Red Bull and vodka night for you? You got your bowling shirt on, it looks like.
No, it is not a vodka Red Bull. It's Tuesday. No.
I love your maturity.
What are you talking about? I just really don't feel like sleeping for one of my weeknights this week whenever I have a big travel weekend planned. No, I'll just skip out on all my sleep tonight.
We have narrowed down to where Elijah will be broadcasting Friday's show from. I say Malibu. Just sneak in over one of those gated areas and find a plush backyard and do the show from Malibu.
See, I did find today, at least for the Friday show, that I have a friend who is like 10 blocks from where we're staying.
Okay.
And I might be able to just go use his Wi-Fi, which would be convenient.
That'd work.
That might work for Friday. I'm not sure that'd work for Saturday. Saturday is still absolutely up in the air.
You're going to be in a Sprinter van hanging on to the OS handle doing a hit on the way to the Coliseum, it sounds like.
That is possible. That is potentially in the cards. I do think the first 30 minutes of the show can be done from most likely an Airbnb or at least a consistent location. And then after that, it might be Elijah from somewhere in L.A.
Yeah. Well, noon to 2 local time, the weekend edition will get you ready for Nebraska USC. Friday, Elijah will be in Malibu. Let's just go there. Let's pump it up. From Dre's studio.
From Diddy's studio?
No, from Dre. From Dre's studio. From Dre's studio. Elijah from Dre's studio.
Elijah, what are you covered in? Is that baby oil?
Poor Elijah. What's the duct tape for? We're going to be at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino. Ameris Sportsbook will be posted up there 4 to 6. Roadshow Friday. Come on in, get your bets down for the NFL and college football weekend. We want to see you out across the river at Ameristar.
I do think that means we have to lock in one more Hail Varsity Radio parlay of the day.
We do. We will get we'll get a winner this time. It'll be the third time being the charm. So I want to ask this, 489-1240, and get your comments into the stream. In lieu of the Dana news, not just the hire, but now the ascension, has your mood flipped at all? Are you looking more forward to Saturday? Are you looking more forward to the final 3 games? You have a little bit more hope. And we know this about Matt Rule and Nebraska football, as he is a builder. We have used the build/renovation topic often during the Rule tenure. And what's the house look like right now? What does Dana's implementation say? Is it a straight remodel, or is it let's just put a clean coat of paint on it and hope the buyers like it? Right? They're not new cabinets, but they're now white cabinets. They're the same old cabinets that we got when we moved into the house. But I look at it as it's too short a time to blow up and go a different direction. Okay? Guys have plays that are in the playbook. There's a language. You don't go in and start trying to learn a second language this deep into the season. I mean, that's what spring ball is for. That's what summer workouts are for. You put all that together, and then you get into fall camp, and then you presumably springboard. Now, from a mood standpoint, I think there's a little more optimism, but still kind of a shoulder shrug with how is it going to end. There's the real fear of going winless, but not as much anymore. I think Nebraska can get one more, maybe another. I just think it's a breath of fresh air. And honestly, if I'm this offense, I don't know how much fun I've had in it. It's been a slog. It's been a struggle. It's been frustrating. It has been inconsistent. You feel that as a player because you want to go perform. And then you feel that as a team if you're on the other side of the football. So this is going to put guys in the best position to do what they do well. And I, for the life of me, don't know what Nebraska does well. I don't, right? And we were asking that back in August. What do you think Nebraska will do well on offense? Well, I don't know that Nebraska is great at running the football. I don't know that they're great at getting open, and a lot of it seems to be just too complex, or there's so many different elements versus KISS, right? Keep it simple. And I think Dana's going to keep it simple, and Nebraska can just go out and go play. Doesn't have to be super complex, doesn't have to show off a brain, doesn't have to show off just the NFL intricacies here of X, Y, and Z. This, to me, will get Dillon or Harburg moving forward, get the ball out of their hand, take what the defense is going to give you, and above all, stick with what's working when you get something working, Elijah, and then figure out a way to sting a defense.
And, to get back to the flipping a house analogy, because I think it kind of works in this scenario. The question needs to be asked, does Nebraska's offense need a full remodel, as you kind of laid out, or can you said give it a fresh coat of paint? Can you sweep it up, put it in a new appliance?
You can clean it up. At this point, you're cleaning it up.
I think the question that you have to ask yourself there is there a selling point with the house? And that's kind of is there a bread and butter or something you can do well offensively? Like it's a lot easier to sell a house that might look a little bit crappy that you have now gone and swept up and put some new appliances in if it's got a beautiful backyard, look at this backyard. The last owners didn't quite utilize the backyard, but it's beautiful. I can see everything out there. This house is nice and clean. Is it the best house you'll find? No, but you're not going to find a house like this with a backyard like that. That's what you're trying to do. Or if there is no selling point, that's whenever you're talking about, okay, let's
remodel this house. You're in a great school
bit.
District. You're in the great conference.
Well, that's what Dana's got to do over the next 3 weeks is you got to find the selling point of the house because you don't have time right now in a 3-week stretch to go a full remodel of this house. Could you over the course of 9 months and get it ready to go by next August? Yeah, sure, you could complete a full remodel of a house in that time. You can't do it in 3 weeks. So you got to go find that selling point, that thing that you do well offensively, and then you got to clean up other areas of the house and get it to a point where some buyer out there will go, you know what, I like that backyard enough that I can deal with this house that it's not perfect, but hey, it's clean and brand new microwave, brand new stove.
What are the selling points right now? And you've got some guys on offense that can do some work for you. Nayor and Banks are talented. Right? You've got Carter Nelson that's an untapped young pup that's pretty good. You've got Barney. You've got Lloyd. You have Emmett Johnson that I know Dowdell's physical and looked okay at times against Ohio State, but the back that's looked the best is Emmett. Maybe your most twitchy guy is Ramir, right? I mean, and get some sort of consistent rhythm with whoever's running the football or catching the football or picking up blocks. Just move the chains and get your quarterback, if it is Dylan, back to just knowing where to go with the football. And just go that route, right? Get back to September. Take some deep shots. Give me some back shoulders. Loft that little layered throw in there to a Borkature, right? So use Fedoni up the seam. Let him give some piggyback rides out. I mean, there are some cast members as we head to Hollywood, or you head to Hollywood, that you can absolutely lean on here. But it has looked totally opposite. It has looked hopeless at times. In a couple of instances where there's just been no spark, no rhythm, it's been so hard. Even in the red zone, man, it's been so hard. And I think Dana's specialty is red zone efficiency. Dana's specialty has been the ability to snap together offense. I'll say this, if Dana is long-term, right, and who's to say folks don't come knocking on his door, the thought being he wants to be a head coach again, or maybe he wants to be a coordinator in the NFL, right, A or B. You have past history and examples of the Saban rehab project that Rule kind of touched on, where a guy like Lane Kiffin or a guy like Bill O'Brien or a guy like Sark went to Camp Saban, figured it out, got coached hard by Nick, and then they got their own gig, and they were better prepared a second time through in Sark and Lane's instances. Well, you can really showcase. Think if you're able to help flip the offense to something that looks drastically different, and I know that's a big ask, but say it gets to a point where it's competent, it's not a liability, to pair with this defense, and you win 2 out of your last 3. Could happen. There's some winnable games there. Maybe you get scooped up here after this season, but more so maybe after the 2025. You've got guys on offense. If I brought Dana in to run this show and get the offense up to snuff for the first time in my tenure, if I'm Matt Rule, Dana's going to make the call on who he wants in and who he wants out on this offensive staff. That means wide receiver coach. That means running back coach. That means offensive line coach. That means tight end coach. Are these guys currently on staff good enough to win in the Big Ten? And they've got some proving ground. They've got some audition time to get their rooms up to snuff when it comes to perimeter blocking, or when it comes to seeing a hole or where a cutback is at running back. So, it's important for the players to go perform, as Rule has said a couple different times. It's also important for these position coaches here to show that you're going to help this team in a rugged league in the Big Ten. 489-1240. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs. Justin in first. Mike is in again. Justin Old Boot checks in. Great Red Shark all the way from California. Is in. Jay is here. The other Dave checks in. Robert is here. Good to have you, Robert. Your mama says, I made shepherd's pie for you boys. Shepherd's pie is awesome. It's flat out incredible. I've never made it from scratch. It has always been my mother that made it, or back when the old Schwann's truck was roaming through the neighborhoods.
R.I.P. Schwann's.
Yes, I know.
Just went out of business.
I know.
See, we were never the family that had the money for the Schwann's truck. I didn't realize your family had Schwann's truck money growing up.
I guess we did. I don't know. You just kind of threw it in the oven or microwave.
I guess
we did. I didn't have it when the bunny and I got married.
See, to be fair, I don't really know. Maybe this is just what my parents were telling me, because it's like the classic, like whenever you drive past McDonald's and the parents say, well, there's food at home. Maybe that was the Schwann's truck thing. Like, we can't afford that. We got food at home. Maybe it was that case. I never actually knew if the Schwann's truck was an expensive thing or not, but I was always told growing up that we didn't have Schwann's truck money.
Dude, there's a price for convenience. I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to pin my mother down and say, hey, was that part of the reason Papa Bear was pissed all the time because it was unwarranted money being spent? Arlo is in. Michael checks in. He's asking, how's the Kool-Aid tasting today? Eat Beef says Schwann's and Pizza Hut. Small town 90s diet. Good call. Good call there. NASCAR Eric is in. QB1 Ace checking in from Arkansas. Justin reminds us, On3 is reporting that Dawson Merritt has flipped from Bama to Nebraska. That's their projection. It's not in the...
Okay. I was like, what have I missed?
They're projecting that the wind is blowing to Big Red country versus Roll Tide country. Grateful Red in from Colorado, saying Rocky Mountain High School in Colorado. Good to have you. The Real Matthew is in. Uncle Larry checking in. Black Hills Brennan says hello. Good to have you. Black Hills Brennan as always. Brent checks in. Grab some popcorn. Going to be an awesome show. God love you, Brent. Anonymous says, I hate those days when you think you have nothing to do when you go into work and then you leave and have 2 weeks worth of stuff to attend to. Cliff is in from Florida. Mitch Sherman's next on Hail Varsity.
It's that time.
Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Good to have you back in. It's Hail Varsity. We'll get to more of your comments in the stream. Good email to read from Todd coming up. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch, it's been an eventful week already, man, and we'll dive into SC and Nebraska, Dana Holgorsen, all that. How's Mitch Sherman doing?
Well, thanks for asking, Schmitty. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
We're good, man. Just a lot of intrigue here, not only for Saturday, but the rest of the season with Dana Holgorsen. And I got to ask you, is this a magic pill for this football team on the offensive side? What's realistic here moving forward with this change, bud?
Well, I don't think it's a magic pill. I think that we've perhaps fallen for that one or two too many times in the last 2 decades of Nebraska football history, and thinking that, all right, this is the time that it's going to take and everything is going to be fixed. So I'm in skeptic mode on that side of it. I don't believe you can change coordinators in early November and change an offense entirely, its fortunes, its outcomes a week later. I think if the Dana Holgorsen experience is going to work, and I do think that as this moves forward, if it extends for longer than 3 games, which is the expectation for Matt Rule, the hope for Matt Rule, what I would think will happen right now, if it does, it is truly going to be the Dana Holgorsen experience. This will be something that goes down as one of the more colorful chapters, for better or for worse, in all that's happened and gone on with Nebraska football over the years. It's not likely to be boring. Let's just say that. So realistically, it's going to have to come in small pieces, I think, here in this season. If he was starting out a season and he'd had 9 months to work with the program and refine the offensive skills, implement what he does offensively, I think you could go in expecting to bite off bigger chunks. But this is going to have to be small pieces. He's going to have to find the things, like Matt Rule said on Monday, that Nebraska's good at, along with the other offensive coaches. They're going to have to focus their attention on what Nebraska's good at and work in small ways to refine those things, not to give too much to the players. In fact, to take some things perhaps off the plate of the players and allow them just to focus on being good at what they can do well.
Well, as Dana this week dives into what Nebraska does do well and try to find that, I want to take you to a conversation that Schmidt and I had here to lead off this show. Do you think Dana's task this week is is a full remodel job of the offense, if you will, whether that be in the short or the long term? Or do you think he's coming in, as you said, try to find what is Nebraska is doing well, and for the other things, maybe put a new coat of paint on, put in a couple of appliances, try to sell the house? Like what is Dana's task this week in that regard?
Yeah, I don't think he's good. It's not a full remodel. I don't think that's in any way realistic. And I think he probably has spent the latter stages of last week and then into this week determining what he believes Nebraska can do well. You probably, as you get to late Tuesday, and Nebraska's, of course, already practiced today, and you have now Wednesday and Thursday, and then you travel, you ought to be past the things in knowing what this team does well. If you're preparing to play a game on Saturday and do it in any way that reaps the benefit of having this change in the bye week. I think at least as far as what you're going to lean on here against USC, that needs to be determined, and now you need to be working with the players on refining it and putting together a game plan for what they're going to do in the Coliseum. I don't think it's going to be anything. Nebraska's probably not going to come out and look too exotic this week. I think you'll see a lot of basic stuff, like almost back to square one with the offense, but you do have 9 games of film and then a wealth of knowledge on the coaching staff in understanding what this team can do well. I think some of us who have watched the games over the last month or so have wondered what this offense does well.
Yes.
But I think the coaches have a better understanding. I mean, and we're not just talking about what this team does well in games. Like there's an answer to that question when you look back through the practices. If you have that film and I'm sure Dana's watching practice film maybe as much or more than he's watched game film. And you can pull stuff from that, and then the change has to be that Nebraska executes those plays that they've not been executing in games. That maybe they have been executing it in practice. You turn that and put it into a successful spot on the field on Saturday afternoon.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman, where you follow on Twitter, and of course Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch, what do you make of either the short term and, as Matt Rule hopes, the long term combo of Dana and Dylan? What could that mean for the phenom young quarterback?
Yeah, I think they're I think they can be a good combination. I think Dylan's somebody who can thrive in the Dana Holgorsen offense. Now, what the Dana Holgorsen offense would look like at Nebraska, I think, is conceptual right now. It's a work in progress. I don't know that even Holgorsen or Rule have a great idea of it because they're on. I'd expect they're on the same page. Like everything that Matt Rule said on Monday about where their focus is right now and it being on these last 3 games. I mean, that's got to be the mindset of Dana Holgorsen too. I don't think he's thinking about what his offense could look like at Nebraska in 2025. I don't think Dylan Raiola is thinking about what this offense could look like at Nebraska in 2025. Like they're focused on 3 games, fixing the things they can fix, getting Nebraska with the style of football that it's capable of playing and the players that it has, with the defense that it has and the special teams that it has, finding a way to get another win, another 2 wins, another 3 wins if everything goes in the best case scenario. So, but with Dylan, yeah, I mean, I think on the surface it's an encouraging thing because you're bringing in somebody, another voice who has another coach who has a history of success with quarterbacks and has coached prolific quarterbacks and guys like Graham Harrell and Case Keenum and Will Greer who have had a lot of success at the college level. Like coaching a guy with Dylan's talent is not going to be new to Dana Holgorsen if they're going to work together for the long term. And a lot of principles of his offense, the stuff that they do in the passing game, I think is right up Dylan's alley.
Mitch, aside from Dylan, and you said assuming this is long term, which let's play that assumption game here and assume this is long term. What other guys do you look at as being key beneficiaries from a Holgorsen offense? I think a lot of people look at Ja'Cory Barney and compare back to what Holgorsen did with Tank Dell, what Holgorsen did with Tavon Austin. You can kind of see that role. I'm kind of with those people. These are the guys that you think maybe would benefit from a Holgorsen offense, a kind of hand-in-glove type fit.
Yeah, I mean, first guy I'd look to is Carter Nelson. just another young guy in the same class, of course, as Raiola and Barney. The older receivers, the guys who are getting the majority of the catches or the majority of the targets this year outside of the freshmen, are seniors on this roster. But I think Jalen Lloyd can be a great piece in Holgorsen's offense. I think Malachi Coleman, redshirting this year, can be a good piece, a great piece in Holgorsen's offense. And some of the players, other players who are redshirting but don't have experience in this program, like Keelan Smith and Quinn Clark. You start to look at younger running backs on the roster. You heard Real Talk on Monday, a name we haven't heard all year, Mekhi Nelson. I don't know. I mean, that we heard last year at this time a lot about Quentin Ives, and in his first year of having the red shirt off, it hasn't materialized into production on the field. So, let's get excited about it when we see someone scoring touchdowns and gaining yards. But it's a name out there, and Holgorsen is going to be beneficial for running backs too, if he's here long term, in the same way that he would quarterbacks and receivers. I mean, Danny Kaelin is a guy, I think, who would be a fantastic fit in the kind of offense that Dana has run in the past at Houston, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, all the places that he's spent time.
Mitch, just the overall size of this move, not only the timing that you touched on, but just where Rhule's at with the progress of the program and just making this call and moving forward with Dana. I mean, just kind of encapsulate all of that, just really, the impact of what has happened here at Nebraska with Matt Rhule bringing in Dana. I mean, there had to be a breaking point at some point with what he's watching on offense, and they're moving forward in a new direction.
Well, yeah, I think it was the UCLA game. It was the 3-game stretch that Nebraska played between the two byes, and then just the fact that the timing set up here in early November, because you couldn't. I don't know how you really could have done this in a week where you were game planning from Sunday night, Monday morning. It had to be a bye. I mean, you could have brought him in a game where there was a week on in a week where there was a game on the schedule, and then eased him into it, and then he's here for a week as Nebraska's getting ready to play a game, and then the next week he takes over. This was more, as smooth as you can get. The scenario that would work best for a team to do this in mid-season comes when you have an off week, and I think that was a trigger here, and the 3-game losing streak. Just we all saw it, the way the offense looked, and just not having a lot of life, and not being able to do the principal things that Matt Rhule wants his offense to be able to do to play complementary football, help out the defense when the defense is spending a lot of time on the field, like it was in the first half against UCLA. Like, the offense has got to then do its part, and that just wasn't happening in that game. And there were opportunities in each of the last 2 games to win or tie in the fourth quarter with drives that didn't materialize. Both ended in turnovers. Like, in every way, really, this offense recently just hasn't been living up to the expectations. So I think that's a simple way to look at it and just say, look, it wasn't working. So Rhule decided that this had to be done, and it's a gamble. Like, this thing could fail spectacularly, not just here in 2024, which might not be as much of a surprise just because of what you're trying to undertake here, but it could go up in flames in 25. What if the spring comes around or February comes around and Holgorsen finds a job as a head coach or somewhere else that he feels better about coordinating an offense, and you're Matt Rhule and you're left without an OC, in the off season, or what if they just don't mesh? Like, they haven't worked together in the past, and this is a different kind of mix for Rhule. Like, we talk about complementary football and how important it is to this program. Well, Holgorsen's aggressive, and he likes to take risks on the offensive side, and I think it could lead to great things for Nebraska. It could take Matt Rhule's program to the next level. It'll get them over a hump that they've not been able to get over, not just at Nebraska, but at Baylor and Temple too, and as far as beating great teams. They could do that. It could also go the other direction, where this thing just doesn't take, and they're not a fit from a philosophical, schematic, complementary football standpoint. Like he's taken a risk here. But I think he's reached the point after 21 games with what's going on offensively where he feels like it's worth it. Like he has to do this. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And, then I don't know where you're at a year from now or 18 months from now. But I think it's a calculated risk. It's something that he's measured and weighed out and thought about through the last whatever it might be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Maybe he's been thinking about it all year. They had Dana Holgorsen in January, and Rule would have liked to, under the right circumstances, bring him into the program then. Didn't work out then. It did work out now. So they're gonna jump in and see where this thing takes them.
Mitch, appreciate you much, bud. We'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Mitch Sherman. If you caught part of it or want to hear it again, the podcast there for you, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, search Hail Varsity Radio. And like, subscribe, give us a rating. Also, Hail Varsity YouTube. Michael Bruntz, 20 minutes away. And then Matt Vrzal going to join us here on Hail Varsity Radio. What to expect moving forward. And good assessment by Mitch when it comes to the risk associated here with this Holgorsen move. And I don't look at it as risk or look at it as this thing could explode, meth lab style. I mean, totally true. Could happen. Could absolutely happen, Elijah. But
it's the question of what are you blowing down? Where are you cooking your meth? Is it in the is it in the garage of a nice home, or is it in a rundown trailer?
Right. Is it in an RV or is it an underground lab?
What are you blowing up?
Right. So, and to me, there's really no choice to keep kids here.
You got to start cooking meth.
To keep kids here, to attract new playmakers, and to give your team some sort of voice of hope, because it was hopeless on offense. It might be a risk. It might be a different personality from a guy that has been at your side for every stop and just kind of does what you tell him, to some dude that might push back, might go to a casino, a guy that might drink a lot of Red Bull. I mean, can he go do the job, and can he make you better? More importantly, can he make your program better? More importantly, can that program betterment be in what the end goal is for everybody? Fans, coaches, ADs, donors, go win some ball games. And the point that Mitch put on there about, getting over the hump, not just bowling, but even in Matt Rule's career, go be able to go compete and beat some ranked teams. Because that's, get bowling, get 500 or better, but big picture, you have to be able to match wits in this conference with athletes, with scheme, with game plans. You got to be able to outfox as much as outball. And you need both, working on certain Saturdays if you're in Columbus, or at least this season in Bloomington, or if you're in Happy Valley, or if you're out in Oregon.
And there are, as you talk more and more, there are some weird comparisons with this move in Breaking Bad that I can find. Like, I don't know. Could Marcus Satterfield be Jesse? Great whenever you're small time, a great partner to have, but as things grow up and you're working for Gustavo Fring now, you can't deal with a guy like Jesse anymore. He's not what you need as your operation advanced,
Well,
Or the other flip side of that is like the whole desperation. Was it desperate from Walter White to sell meth after the cancer diagnosis, or was it calculated? Was it what he needed to do?
It was desperate. I need money, and then I'm my own little king in my kingdom here. This is what I punted for Gray Matter Industries to be a high school teacher. And I've never been happy with my life, as the guy with the eyebrows works me 75 hours a night after we're teaching a full day. Snitley chimes in, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Jeff Snitley asking a good question here in the stream. It'll be interesting to see how Nebraska does on the plus side of the 50 going forward. That's where Sand's offense died. And, yeah, Nebraska crossed midfield enough. They didn't see a lot of points when it came to getting onto the opponent's side of the field. It is important here. Brian says, I think Holgorsen's hire gives fans hope. In the final three, if Rule continued with Sat, he ran the risk of losing recruits, guys on offense potentially transferring out, skilled guys that want to score touchdowns. That's really true with this sense in this field. We asked about, how do you feel? What's your mood here, the final three with this change? You've got to feel better because while it is far from a certainty, it's at least something different, and it's different in the form of a guy who's won and been good at it. This isn't just another name or a different name. It's somebody that's proven, and he's coming from success as a head guy and really undoubted success as a coordinator, where he has gotten the ability to be a head coach because of how good he was as an offensive mind. Todd emails in, back to the renovation metaphor. Todd says, I'd say tear down the studs, but bleep, we don't have any of those. I love Todd. That's pretty good. 489-1240, open phones here till 5. We'll check in with Bruntz and then Verz in hour 2. Spike says Nebraska could realistically not find a better hire at OC than Holgorsen at this point in the year. That's true at this point in the year for sure, but he's going to be a name possibly. That's the other part of this. Don't wait and then get into a bidding war if Utah and Oklahoma want new coordinators. Go get him now and then keep him. Whatever happens in these final three, give me the certainty that you got him at 2025, and the only way you lose him is if he goes off to the NFL or if he gets another head coaching opportunity. You guys are way overcomplicating this. It's very simple. All Dana has to do is call the right play when it makes sense to call it. How many times have we seen the opposite from Sat? Rhythm is key. The in-game feel, right? When to stick with something, when to go exotic, when to take a shot. You just felt, case in point, when we saw the old throwback trick play, right? Let's throw it to Harburg at the 25-yard line or the 30, or once you're past the 50, let's show off the trick play. Let's make it fun. And you get 12 yards.
And I think that though kind of does get back to what we led off this conversation with, and if you're on the phone lines hang there, we'll get there in a second, is like, does Nebraska even have the guys on the offense that can go out and execute the right play if you call it at the right time? And that kind of gets back to the question of how much work does Dana have to do coming in here with a fresh paint job or a full renovation? Like, if your guys can execute the plays, if you call them at the right time, then it comes down to a paint job. You just have to get in, get the plays right, put in a couple wrinkles here and there. If your guys cannot go out and execute the plays as they're called in the right time, and it's a personnel issue, that's where you start talking about foundational, a lot of work to be done.
Well, can I get guys open? Can I get the football to them? Can I call a slant? Can I call a button hook? Can I call a back shoulder? I mean, you've seen some explosives. Can I call a seam route for Fedoni? I mean, you've seen early in the year the offense put up more points and look explosive at times. And can you get some rhythm with the run game? Right? That's going to help everybody out. And I think MJ just nailed it. We got to print this post off and put it up on the fridge because timing is everything. And can you call it and not force it? We'll wind down hour one. Take your calls here next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Michael Bruntz, Matt Vrzal coming up. We Welcome in, Dave, 489-1240. Dave, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, you bet. Enjoyed the show.
Thank you.
I got a quick question, couple questions. Yeah, got a new OC coming in, been here for about 10 days. How in the heck, going into the USC game, how does he learn all the plays from the playbook? I mean, you hear about it's inches thick. I mean, how does he understand, or how does he know, or how do you even call the plays? And second thing, my question, just to continue, is I wonder if Coach Dana is going to go in and put some new plays in. That's my two questions.
All right. No, good stuff, Dave. I think there'll be some install, possibly. There's wrinkles and plays you can rep and run and install that may be a version of it in the playbook. But two, he's going to go to the guys after watching film, of course, and ask them, what do you like? What are you good at? What are you comfortable with? That's a key part of communication. Talk to your quarterback, talk to your wideouts, talk to the line, talk to the coaches, and then formulate from there when it comes to putting together the game plan, the play sheet. And you don't have to be vast with it, but be good at it, and then be able to zig when the defense zags, be able to adjust or make some sort of counter to what gets stopped or shut down after you've maybe had some initial success. I think you can put it together, but just don't overcomplicate. I think that's the big word this season, is it's been overcomplicated. It's been slow developing. The rhythm's been very miss opposed to hit, and you've just had spurts versus sustainability.
Yeah, I think when you get to see Raiola in those first 2-3 games, I mean, he was kind of freewheeling, not overthinking things. He was good. He starts thinking, and all of a sudden it traps his game,
No, big time. I mean, don't think, just play. Dave, thanks for the phone call.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. 489-1240 to get in, to sneak in a couple more calls. You have I have not seen Real Genius with Val Kilmer. That's a popular discussion point, apparently, in the stream. Matthew kind of throws that in here on the stream. Elijah, figure out that you can't have slow developing plays with poor O-line play. You have Snitley checking in again here with kind of that Bill Busch effect. This was real. Well, when Busch came in and took over as DC, they started just kind of flying to the football. They simplified. I just remember how aggressive, and it paid off in the form of wins, especially at Iowa 2 years ago, where you had some secondary blitzes. Guys just started playing and flying to the football.
It is easier, though, to do that defensively than offensively.
Yes, it
you hear
is.
that from a lot of coaches, like why defense tends to dominate early in fall camp. Well, it's easy to get their plays installed and get them playing fast. Offense requires a lot more timing and intricacies. And I also want to get back to that first comment here briefly about can't run slow developing plays with a suspect offensive line. To just add to that point, can't do that whenever the game plan on Nebraska is to blitz them and play man coverage.
Right. Send heat.
That's less an offensive line problem, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. The offensive line is not where it needs to be for you to be a dominant top 25 team, but it is better than it was 2 years ago. But you're putting them in a rough spot whenever it's putting all those guys on an island because the defense brings pressure. No, here's a 6-second developing play in the backfield.
And it's been the recipe for 6 weeks.
Hasn't changed.
Man up, blitz, and away you go. Reminder to buckle up, use your seatbelt. It saves lives. If properly worn, make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office, Hour 2 on the way.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We say hi to Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports, and find him on Twitter at Michael Bruntz. Bruntsy, I got a kick out of you and our dear friend Evan Bland making eye contact, sighing, and then letting out a, well, how did you think it was going to end with your fighting Denver Broncos? And both of you were like, well, I think he'd missed the kick. Didn't call for a block, but how'd you process the weekend into Monday's news drop? Good to spend some time today, bud.
Yeah, no, the football gods let it get a little bit farther along than they usually do. They usually don't even let it get into the fourth quarter before the soul-crushing loss. So that's progress, I think. But, you just cave in one side of the line, block the field goal, and even the Chiefs players and coaches seemed pretty surprised by everything, which is very par for the course. And that's that's life as a Denver Bronco football fan.
Well, I can't say I was ever Denver fan, but I appreciated John Elway, Carl Mecklenburg, of course, Rulon Jones. I mean, the 80s greats, Sammy Winder, Three Amigos. And I was a big Kenny Walker and Mike Kroll guy, that 1990 season. Other than that, though, I'd tag along with my buddy Jeff the pharmacist. He's been a season ticket holder for years. So we get out to Donkeyland a few times, and Old Mile High, New Mile High, and have a good time. Little breather, little road trip. Nebraska taking a road trip out to La La Land, and a little bit of a news bump. And I don't know, what's the feedback you see with your message boards and listeners and fans you interact with on Husker 24/7, the Dana news?
Yeah, no, I think the initial reaction was surprise, right? Like, I think everybody kind of was thinking that was going to be a move that was going to be coming down the road. I think the timing of it maybe was the surprise for everybody, and the fact that Matt Rule pulled the trigger on the decision. So I think it's been met with, I think people are a little bit more dialed into the last three games than maybe they were prepared to be if nothing had changed. So I think from that point of view, people are a little bit more kind of do the you pull just when you thought I was out, you pulled me back in kind of a thing. And there's intrigue. I mean, this is not something that typically happens where you bring somebody from outside the organization in the middle of the college football season to call plays and coordinate things. I think everybody, for the most part, is kind of tempering expectations and kind of eager to see what this is going to look like. I mean, I think that's the interesting part to me is, you're going to have, 12 days between when Dana Holgorsen took over and or at least when he got to Lincoln and when Nebraska plays USC. I mean, what can you kind of get done during that time period? It's going to be interesting to find out. Plus, you've got the built-in intrigue of USC starting the new quarterback. Nebraska's got quarterback questions with Dylan's health. And, you had the news come down today that USC, get hit by the NCAA. I mean, why not? Let's get weird all week, right?
No, absolutely. Wow, the NCAA is going to actually punish somebody in 2024 when they've just said, we're going to step back and let you handle it with official visits. No more limit. Oh, you want a payroll? You want revenue sharing? Sure, go for it. I mean, whatever.
Well, the delicious part of the whole thing is that it's for stuff that's now completely legal. I mean, it was, coaching by analysts, on-field coaching by analysts, which, I mean, Nebraska got hit for that too. And now, it's a shoulder shrug and completely legal. So that seems very par for the course there.
Well, we'll see what can really happen with Nebraska and their offense on Saturday and moving forward. But the expectation clearly is to get one or more, get bowl eligible. And in the short term, what do you think Holgorsen, as a play caller, as a game planner, and as a quarterback guy, can do for Dylan Raiola?
Yeah, I think it's more about kind of honing in on things that Nebraska can do well. Mm-hmm. The one thing I kind of go back to a little bit is when Nebraska made the move away from Eric Chenander on defense. It seemed like there was a lot of value in kind of the simplicity of things, mm-hmm. and guys not having to think nearly as much, and kind of being able to just kind of trust their athleticism and play. And I think there has to be on offense, you have to have the scheme portion of it for sure. But I think it's more the sequencing of plays. I think it's maybe taking a little bit of a different look about maybe the way you do the run game, and also knowing when to take shots and be a little bit more aggressive. I think that's what he can kind of bring to the table, and I think that's kind of what he's done in his background. So, I'm not expecting, wholesale changes. I'm not expecting things to look, like a completely different team on Saturday in Los Angeles. But I think there's going to be some things that they can find that Nebraska does well. Maybe you get rid of some things that you've tried to do and not had success with. So I think that's the value of kind of having an outsider's perspective on things, is saying, look, this is not working for you. Let's try this. Maybe we can do this a little bit differently. So that's more of what I'm expecting. The thing that's going to be intriguing to me, at least, is you're going to have a different voice in the headset for Dylan. You're going to have different kind of coaching points that are probably going to be more important to Dana than they were to Marcus Satterfield. So that's a different change and an adjustment that a freshman's going to have to make there.
Have you circled, and this isn't to pile on, it's a legit question, what does Nebraska do well on offense?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It kind of depends on the quarter, probably. I mean,
right.
And that's been the frustration is that you just have not had anything all season that you can go back to and count on. And I think that's maybe where, maybe Dana's able to find some things, some route concepts that work a little bit better. I mean, take better advantage of some of your playmakers. I mean, this was an offense that I think coming into the season that Matt Rule expected would be able to throw the ball deep, create some explosive plays, and, be able to run the ball a little bit off that too. So, I think that's where the creativity has to come in a little bit is, if we're trying to run the ball this way and it's not working, well, how can we kind of approach things differently and have some success? I mean, I think that's where you can kind of change things up a little bit and simplify things a little bit. I mean, if you can run similar route concepts out of different personnel groupings, and I think there's the potential for that to happen. I mean, I think there's some things that Nebraska can do because I thought Matt Rule's kind of brief diagnosis of maybe what their issues have been this year is true. I mean, it felt like a lot of kind of having to get this guy involved and trying this and trying that, and it never was really cohesive. And I think that's a hard way to coordinate and run an offense and call plays.
Did you sense frustration at all with the offensive side of the ball, some of the young guys, just the ineptness, inconsistency? Do you think it bled over to the defense? And I ask this, Michael Bruntz with us here on Hail Varsity, with just some of the showings, specifically Indiana, UCLA. I mean, they just looked zapped coming out of the get-go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a little bit. I think if you're a defense and you feel like you have to play really well and there's not much margin for error, I can see where that would be and get a little bit frustrating at times, especially if, you like against UCLA, you give up some points early. You probably feel like your back is against the wall anyways. Mm-hmm. So, I think if they can score some points early, I think that helps the defense a ton over the last 3 games here. And, for the defense, I think it's just kind of getting back to the fundamentals too, tackling well, getting after the quarterback a little bit. I mean, I'm eager to see if they find something even coming out of the bye week that maybe they can do a little bit more of or a little bit less of to give them an edge over those last 3 games. But it's going to be an interesting challenge this week against USC for that defense because you're preparing for a quarterback that's different. You don't have a ton of tape on him at USC. He's got the threat to run, which is always a challenge. And, by the way, USC has some pretty darn good skill players too. So it's going to be a big challenge for them as well, and kind of trying to figure out what USC is going to do and if they're going to do anything different coming out of a bye because, as we've seen, it feels like every week this year, Nebraska's opponent has 2 weeks to prepare and throw some different things at them.
Michael Bruntz with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Going to go to hoops. Fairleigh Dickinson looms this week, and a couple of years removed from knocking off Purdue. We all watched Fred yesterday, and he is not resetting yet, but there's been frustration with simplicity. Sounds like we're talking Husker football on the offense, but defense and special teams, right? for Fred, get him a helmet and a mouthpiece. But on a serious note, basketball's been a little rough, and they've got some named teams looming on their schedule. Important for him to get right.
Yeah, no, and I think you're kind of seeing the challenges of trying to figure out rotations, trying to figure out kind of how this thing's going to look when this team is put together a little bit differently. And by the way, on top of that, you're just missing shots. I mean, at some point, you need to be able to finish around the rim. In Fred's offense, you have to be able to shoot well from the outside, and Nebraska is not doing that with any kind of regularity right now. So it feels like a group that you kind of need something good to happen. You need to see the ball go through the hoop a few times. You need to have some possessions where it's effortless and looks like it's supposed to. And I do think Nebraska's still kind of trying to figure out what that rotation is going to look like. I mean, I think you can kind of see, based on how the first couple of games have gone, who should probably be out there a little bit more and guys maybe a little bit less. But, that needs to get figured out this week. I mean, you've got St. Mary's looming up in South Dakota. You got Creighton on the horizon too. So you got to get that dialed in, because, these are the types of games that you need to get early in the year to set yourself up later when you start going through that meat grinder of the Big Ten. So lots to do there for Nebraska's roster. And, especially, the thing that I'm curious to see is kind of how that front court comes together, how those minutes get divvied up, because it's such an important piece of Nebraska's offense and being able to facilitate through those guys. So that's something they got to get figured out.
What's your thought on Raleigh in the point guard situation? Has that been a work in progress, or do you see things really making a jump for the better here as the season gets deeper?
Yeah, I think, for him, it's probably more trying to figure out guys around him a little bit. I mean, I think when you look at his background and what he's done, I mean, he's a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. I mean, he can score a little bit. He's going to rebound. He plays tough defense. He's going to have to be an important piece of what Nebraska does this year. And, I do think, and going back to even before the season started, Fred was talking about turnovers needing to be limited. That was one thing that they had kind of been fighting as a team. And, this is a hard-nosed veteran point guard, and you're going to have to lean on him a little bit. So I think there's still more there. I think that picture can look a lot better. It's just, kind of right now it seems like he's kind of going the way that the whole team is. I mean, it just feels like a group that needs to kind of slow down a little bit. And just like you said, I mean, it's a little bit like Nebraska's offense on football. Just kind of do what works well and make those simple plays.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7. Bruntz will get you out, but field is set for the MLB Desert Invitational. Husker Baseball just around the corner down in Phoenix, second week of February. UC Irvine, of course, Vandy, part of it, and then San Diego State. That's a great slate for Will Bolton Company.
Yeah, they're going to be challenged right out of the gates. I mean, in that tournament, they were either going to get Vanderbilt or they were going to get Tennessee in that game. So I guess it's the Commodores, and we'll see how that looks. But, this is a really tough schedule right out of the gates. You've got LSU on the schedule in the event down in Texas. They're playing a true road series at Louisiana, and they always hit the ball down there, really kind of veteran team. And, I think this schedule has been set up with the idea that Nebraska has the pitching depth to square off against those teams. And that's usually where you see, if if you have guys at the back of the bullpen that can come in and get outs, you can compete in those games. And I think they feel like they've got a veteran team that's going to fight. So it's definitely the schedule, the kind of schedule where if you take care of business early on, you're going to be sitting pretty good when April and May rolls around and you start talking about NCAA tournament stuff.
Bruntz, you have a good trip to L.A. We'll talk soon. Thank you much.
All right. Talk to you then, Schmidt. Thanks.
Good to hear from Bruntz. Appreciate his time before he heads off to La La Land. Matt Vrzal going to be with us. His take on Nebraska, the Dana era, and Nebraska USC next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Can subscribe Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Husker standout, the man at Paisan Pizzeria. Matt Vrzal with us at Verz51 on Twitter. Verz, good to spend time. You are rushing and running, brother. Thanks for talking some ball with us. 'Tis the season, my friend, as we get into November. Nebraska football trying to spark. Wanted to get your thoughts, man, on the Dana Holgorsen hire and elevation. Do you have a more positive outlook here for the rest of this month for the Big Red?
Well, good to talk to you guys. It's been a minute, so happy to come on. Okay, here's the thing for me. End of the day, it really, like, you want to be, kind of in sync and have things going and play calls and blah, 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 blah. Dana Holgorsen isn't out executing the plays, right?
Yeah.
Satterfield does not get out and execute the plays. It's the players. So there's got to be accountability on their end for it as well. Like, they've got to go out and execute. And I think that's something that we want to overlook. We're looking for a magic pill. So we think, oh, well, if we change this or we do that or this happens, then it's all going to be better. What I'm saying is, like, there's got to be a higher output on the field. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. Nobody wants to say it. But the players run the plays. Like, you have to go out and you have to execute what is called. And if you execute what is called, no offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator anywhere ever designed a play or a defense said, man, we are going to run this and it is going to suck. This is going to be a terrible play. They're probably going to score twice on this one defense. No coach has ever done that, ever. All plays are designed to win. And so you got to go out and execute. Like, the standard that everybody gets held to, I think, has to increase. There has to be a higher standard for execution in the game.
Don't disagree with you. It's play call or player. That being said, at what point, Verz, in your coaching life and also as a player, did coaches or coordinators go a different direction because the execution was so spotty or non-existent?
Well, I think one thing I was really lucky to be blessed with in my football career was coaches that called plays that accentuated the skill sets of the players.
Right.
Okay. Ran down, big kids, good running backs, pretty rough, like to mix it up. It was pretty awesome. But we were a wishbone team. We ran double ISOs. We ran we call it counter trap, but we ran trays and all that fun stuff. So that was kind of what we needed to do. We had a crazy fast quarterback every year I was there, so it was fun. Get to college, and you see these guys that they're just freak athletes, and then you pile more freak athletes on freak athlete. They all had an attitude to them, and they wanted to beat somebody's ass, and they did. So you called plays, accentuated that when the defense tried to overcompensate. Then you went to the play action game, and you had the great receivers that we had running wide open because they had busted their ass blocking the whole game. Right, but everybody's doing their job before their time comes. When I started coaching, Troy Twilliger and Malcolm was probably one of the best play callers I've ever been around. Didn't have a play sheet. Just look at the field, diagnose it, call plays. We started out in a 2-tight setup our first year in Malcolm. Our second year in Malcolm, we didn't have any alignments. We went 5 wide. Going 5 wide in C2 football, you become very unpopular very quick. Nobody's got that. But what we had was a bunch of little fast receivers. We had a great running back, and we had some linemen that were athletic, but they were not very big. Mm-hmm. So you call to fit, right? Went to a couple other schools. They called to what they wanted to call. Didn't work. It was absolutely horrible at Omaha Northwest because we didn't call plays that accentuated what our players did. Get here to Scott, rinse, lather, repeat. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it because it fits the body of the player that we have. And so if they can call plays that accentuate the skill sets of the players they have, I think Nebraska realistically can win 2 of the last 3. Mm-hmm. I really do. I don't think anybody you're going to play as a world beater. I think you can go out and you can shock some people, but you have to go out and execute the plays.
It's Matt Vrzal with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, talking Dana Holgorsen as he gets play calling duties for Nebraska. And Matt, whenever you look at this move, I kind of want to reset something we talked a little bit on the show yesterday with just the feel this gives you. Does this feel like a move from Matt Rhule with some panic, kind of searching for answers, or do you think it's a guy that's looked at his offense this year, seen the pieces that they have, especially at the quarterback position, and said, you know what, I think we need to readjust, and Dana Holgorsen's offense is going to fit the skill set more? What's your take on what yesterday meant to you? Is it panic or is it calculated?
I don't think Rhule panics. I think he's calculated in what he does, and he kind of assesses what they have for players. And now it's like, okay, well, we have this. Who accentuates what our guys' skill set can do? This is just me. Mm-hmm. I'm just apprehensive at all times. I hope I haven't paid attention much to Holgorsen. I just hope the air raid type offense has evolved to accommodate more run, because we were told we were going to be a physical run team, because that will be valuable in the colder weather months here in dear old Nebraska. Mm-hmm. So interested to see what happens out in California. It'll be sunny and warm. Hope we carve up the Trojans, and then we come home and maybe reassess. And okay, it's going to be about 45. So everybody get your little hand warmers ready, because if we're going to spin it around here, you're going to have to catch it.
Matt Vrzal's with us, Pison's Pizzeria, of course, at Verz51 on Twitter, and talking some Big Red football. Talking with some folks in that Dana orbit, you know, his time at West Virginia, the running joke with Leach and crew was you're kicked out of the air raid fraternity because you run the football too much. I think Dana Holgorsen's evolved a little bit. He's had his history, 1,000, 1,500-yard rushers at West Virginia, Kendall Hunter at Oklahoma State years ago. So I don't think he's hell-bent on throwing 70 times.
He's had 1,000, 1,500-yard rushers? How long has he coached?
No. I said he's had 1,000 to 1,500. That's what I meant to articulate. He's had guys that run the football.
That would be a hell of a statistic.
That'd be really good. That's a world record. Absolutely. That's a world record, Verz. But what's your take here on looking at Dylan Raiola, the quarterback situation, the start of the season to where things are at right now? You're going to have a freshman wall. You're going to have freshman struggles. But, man, he started out on fire. What do you think of his roller coaster year? And that's not to be unexpected as a freshman, but I think there's still some shock to it just because of how it started and where it's at, quite honestly, confidence-wise.
Well, more than the freshman struggle, like that happens to all quarterbacks. They all go through a lull. My bigger concern is more of the senior pride. Like if you're an old lineman and you're letting that kid get the S beat out of him, you got to start to take pride in your work. Like you got to start to be embarrassed by getting your ass whooped. Like you got to start to be more prideful in practice and technique and those kind of things, right? And I can't help you do that. Nobody can help you. No coach can help you do that. None. That's in you. So if you're content with that kid getting knocked, then you probably need to move on. Or man up, one of those two. Because the way it goes now, they have time, okay? There's been times where they've protected great. They really have. But then the throw doesn't get made, and it's, you know, he may be seeing ghosts. That's fine. It's going to happen. I think sometimes he loses the the depth perception on how close the rush actually is. But there also needs to be kind of a bailout for him. Who's your check down? Who's your swing to a running back? Who's your tight end waiting in the flat? Like those kind of things I think would be helpful in the scenario or in the situation to help him evolve. Still an immense talent. I mean, and he's tried. You know, people are like, oh, you got to run the ball more. He started to run the ball more. You can see it wasn't supernatural for him, but he did it, right? But where's the pride in the line? Like, yeah, okay, we pass-proed for 3 seconds and the ball didn't get thrown. We're scrambling now. Next time we know we got to make it last longer. We got to go 4 seconds, 5 seconds, right? Because you look at some, like the really good lines, it may get covered when they have a young quarterback in there. He may be wanting to scramble out, but they're still just working. They're just working and working and working. And they give him as much time until he feels more comfortable to throw it. So I'm always going to be hard on the linemen. It's nothing personal. I think it's a nice group of kids. I think they're talented. But you got to also be kind of pissed off. And you got to also move your feet more, use your hands better, do all the little things. Maybe it takes 4 or 5 seconds, and that's not fair to you, but guess what? Life ain't fair. Life's hard. Buy a helmet.
Matt, whenever we discuss the Husker offensive line here, I want to go to rushing attack as well, because that can be a freshman quarterback's best friend. Has their run blocking, in your eyes, been up to par for a Big Ten football team? What does Nebraska need from them? Are they getting it right now?
You've seen phases of it in games as they call plays, and it gets, UCLA, you ran, I think it was 6 consecutive run plays. It was probably the longest streak of consecutive run plays in the tenure of the play caller, and it was going fine. And then instead of getting 3-4 yards, it got 2 yards once, and then it was back to spinning it everywhere. If you want to be successful throwing the ball, you have to have the safety uncomfortable, okay? The safety has to be, because the safety is a two-way player. He's got to help and run support, but he's also got to cover, all right? So if you get him uncomfortable where you can start to chunk that, and I'm not saying you got to run 8-9 yards a pop. Those will come later in the game. But if you can consistently get 3.5 to 4, now he's got to nose down where he doesn't want to. The defensive coordinator has to change the play call. In order for you to do that, you have to consistently call running plays, which hasn't happened for Nebraska in forever and a day. Okay, and I know people will tell me that they're damn near balanced on the season. Great, but it doesn't. It never gets into a rhythmic setup where it's boom, boom, boom. We're controlling this. Now we play action. Boom, boom, boom. We're controlling this. We got 2nd and 2, which announcers and fans need to stop the phrase. This is a great down to take a shot. No, it's not. It's a great down to get a first down. Because now you're going to gain momentum. Your offensive linemen feel confident that you feel confident in them. So now they can get lathered up. They can really want to go. They trust us to do this. We're going to keep doing this because it's going, right? And we may only get a yard on the play, but I know they're going to trust me to come back and hit it again, right? Because you can't play football thinking, oh, man, if we don't get 3 here, they're never going to call this play again. And I think that's what happens to Nebraska at times.
Few more minutes. Matt Vrzal on the other side. Hail Varsity continues. Can always subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Little overtime here. Matt Vrzal with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska and what to expect the final 3 showings. USC this weekend. Version nailed it. Rhythm, lather. I mean, that has been lacking. You've had very few instances where it's been a half, let alone 4 quarters of it. You've seen some glimpses, but a change was made. What do your eyes tell you about this team? I mean, I'm a big why guy. Why does Nebraska look, or why did they look so different from a spring in their step standpoint against UCLA and Indiana versus what happened with Ohio State or even initially against Illinois? They've had a couple of games this year where, UCLA's a good ball club and Indiana's on fire, but the team just looked out of it. What's your assessment?
I think senior leadership is something that has to take the brunt of it. Right? Like, you got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the thing to me that happens, and this is, I've had a blessed football career. I really have. It's been awesome. But fortunate to be around great coaches, great players, great people. But for me, I still to this day hate losing more than I love winning. The losses that have happened in my life, it's one of the reasons why I hated the fact that my nephews went to Lincoln Southeast. I despise the fact of it. I still cuss my sister for it. Because they ended my high school career. I hate it. I absolutely despise it. But they're my nephews, and I have to support them. That's the way I feel about it. But when the losses are okay, right, when it's acceptable to come out, and then you can go to a microphone, you can say it'll never happen again, it'll this and it'll that, that's awesome to hear. Really is. You got to show me, because I'm tired of talk. I've heard this speech. I could almost recite it for you. But can you, as seniors, go back into your bag, and can you be disciplined enough to stay and do your responsibility? Can you not do too much? Okay? Can you trust your teammates? There's a couple examples. They have a great play called against Ohio State defensively. They have it's lock, stock, and barrel. This is ball game. The blitz is going to come. It's going to take the quarterback. They're on a little zone read. The blitzer does not take the quarterback, which he is supposed to. He wants to go down and be a hero, and he wants to go down and try to tackle a running back. That ain't his play to make. And the quarterback runs, gets first down, maybe a touchdown. I don't know. I kind of blacked out because I got so mad. But you have to do your job inside of your scheme. Do that, okay? And maybe, just maybe, whatever you're doing, it isn't working. So maybe you just change that up. Maybe you do something different. Because a year ago, I felt they had a lot more camaraderie, even though they were finding ways to lose games. Right now, I don't feel that same sense, because you only get a finite opportunity. The only thing a high school coach can guarantee you is 9 football games a year if he's a man of honor. Okay? He can guarantee you 9 games a year. The only thing a college coach can guarantee you right now is 12. So you have 12 opportunities to go out and prove that you know what you're doing. You're going to play with your teammates, and you're going to do everything you can to win a football game. You're not going to do too much. You're not going to come fly and try to make an ESPN hit. You're going to do fundamentally sound things, the boring things, the little minute things that help you win games. But you ain't there to make ESPN. You're there to win a game, right? So if you can do those things, if you can bear down these last 3 games and you go play fundamentally sound team football, people can bash me for this. You can write it down. If they go out and play as a complete Nebraska team, trying to be the best version of themselves, they can win the last 3. I truly believe that 100%. If they want to go out and play individual football, it's going to be a long off season.
Matt, last thought here as we talk the last 3 games. Where does it need to start in your eyes? Does it start with a rejuvenated offensive performance, as we kind of talk so much about Dana Holgorsen, what he brings this week? Or to you, does it start with that defense playing with a chip on their shoulder, playing up to the level that we know they can?
I don't necessarily think you can pin it on one side or the other. I think it's a combination of both. I think this is the trick of it, right? Everybody says, "Oh man, you're going to play USC." You're not going to play USC. You're going to play yourself. Your goal is to go out and be the best version of Nebraska that you can be. They just happen to provide you the blueprint of the things you have to do to prove that to everybody. Okay? They're going to give you the players to play against. If you look at that and you get into a defeatist mindset of the game plan of, oh, my God, their receivers are so good, and oh, my God, they're going to start this running quarterback, and we don't handle running quarterbacks well. Oh, my God, their defensive mind can do X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. That's a defeatist way to think of it. If you view it as, hey, boys, this is our challenge in this. Secondary, you're going to be challenged. We have to be pinpoint to the step in our coverages and our responsibilities. Offensive linemen, we have to be pinpoint in our steps, in our hand placement, in our push to make sure that we take care of these big Samoans that they got that I love, that you can just drive them off the field. It doesn't matter, okay? Offensive line, defensive line, you got to make sure this QB isn't the guy today. So you got to make sure you're staying in your lane. You got to make sure you get good separation. You separate from a block. You get rid of the block when it's your chance to make a play. Linebackers, you got to fly to the ball, and we got to be tight and fits. We cannot get wide on anything. This is where it all fits. You go here, you go here, you go here. If everybody's there, there's nowhere to run. But if you lose those battles, it's going to be difficult. But we got to go do our game plan. We got to go execute what we got. We don't care what they have. We go execute what we have, trust our coaches. We can win this game.
Matt Vrzal's with us, Pison's Pizzeria. Verz, appreciate you much, man. Great to talk some ball. Love your input on this, and we'll see how Saturday is.
We shall see, boys. Have a good day.
Good stuff from Matt Vrzal. Hail Varsity Radio, winding down this second hour. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the podcast. Any part of the interviews today you missed, Hail Varsity YouTube can also check that out. So our dear friend Loose Lips in the stream is pretty adamant that Dylan isn't going to go Saturday. Let's chew on that for a second. We don't have any inside information. We don't have any outside information on Dylan. I just know what Pete Thamel tweeted out. I know what Rule talked about briefly on Monday, and they probably are hoping he can go, but they're probably getting Heinrich ready. I mean, to me, it's going to be about comfort. It's going to be about that quick decision-making with this Dana effect. It's not going to be really any new outside-the-box air raid. I mean, it's just going to be what they think they can do well within the offense. And if it is Harburg, that running quarterback element, that's what USC has switched to for Saturday. So you're going to have somebody spy the dude, especially on third down, and get after him and stay in your rush lanes defensively if you're Nebraska. Offensively, if it is Harburg, so be it. The guy's won before. He can bring a little element of toughness. He can scramble. You can have that maybe positive effect run game-wise with the quarterback and running back run aspect to it. But I'm anxious to see Dylan throw the football under Holgorsen at some point.
Yeah, and is that going to be this Saturday? I don't know. The people in the stream saying he's not going to be a go, I think, are way too premature.
Yeah,
with
you're
that.
early. And we're not going to know. If I'm Rule, I'm not saying anything Thursday.
As it stands right now, I'd probably put him at questionable.
Absolutely.
That's about what I'd put him at, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him play.
We'll know an hour before kickoff with the injury or participation report. That's the official word.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Tuesday with Hail Varsity. Big thanks to Matt Vrzal and Michael Bruntz. Mitch Sherman in hour one. Tomorrow on the show, we'll run down Mike Babcock, Evan Bland, and a Papa Searles sighting. We'll check in with Searles, get geared up for USC Nebraska as we get deeper into the week. So everything finalized for you. You are counting the days out. You're going to fly out Thursday night, be in Malibu for Friday's show. We'll be at Ameristar.
I don't think I'll be in Malibu for Friday's show. But
just go with it. We'll be at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino, Amerisports, just outside there, 4 to 6. So come by and see us. Cross the river, some NFL and college football at the Sportsbook for you. We'll put together the third leg of our Hail Varsity parlay, and we have just been so close to being 2 for 2. Then pretty jacked, man. My buddy Nate, his lovely wife Katie Dickerson's turning, I think 47. So we're going to be gambling all night.
I won't be too bad.
No, it'll be all right.
I won't be too bad. Now, you ask if everything's finalized? No, there is.
You stressed?
Well, aside from the game on Saturday, which I still need to figure out how I'm getting there and how I'm getting home.
Aren't you going to get like a Sprinter van with your bros?
We've discussed. It hasn't been finalized yet.
That's a win. It's $40. Is that round trip or?
One way.
Still 80.
Yeah. We would probably figure out something to do, not head straight back home after the game, considering the game ends
Sunset
at like 4
Strip
p.m.
Viper Room.
Yes. Maybe not. I don't know. I have discussed as we try to find some things to do. Maybe do I go golfing on Friday before the show? It's possible. There's a golf course right over by the hotel we're staying at Thursday night into Friday.
I would try and pull off the I'm Keith Jackson's grandson and just find your way in to the Los Angeles Country Club.
I'll walk in. You know Chris Schmidt? That's my co-host.
No.
Good friend of mine.
Nobody
I'll
cares.
tee off in 10 minutes.
Nobody cares. Sir, we would need you to leave. We'd ask you to leave?
Mm-hmm. Maybe. There have been discussions. UCLA plays basketball Friday night. Maybe go check that out. The Chargers and Bengals play Sunday Night Football. Sunday. Maybe
because you fly back Monday.
We leave Monday morning, but I don't get back until Monday evening. It's a long day of travel on Monday.
It'll work.
So I don't know, trying to figure out some other things to do besides go to the Husker football game. I think most of my time will be spent sitting in Ubers, though, in L.A. because
traffic's garbage on the 405.
Yeah, as I look it up.
One time I experienced it years and years ago. We go enjoy, dude. What's the weather like? 70s?
Yeah, we'll see. Crew chimes in and says, I'll be there with Elijah. I have no idea what our plan is. Don't need a plan. All these things are true. But yeah, no, you know how in Lincoln...
Is Crew going to be your tour guide?
Dear God, I hope not.
Sexy Grinch would be fun to party with.
I'd like to survive, so let's hope not. The thing is, you know how in Lincoln everything is roughly 10 to 15 minutes away no matter where you are?
Don't kid yourself. It's supposed to be 10 to 15 minutes away, and it takes forever.
In Lincoln?
Yeah.
I would...
Because every other road's ripped up. Omaha is so awesome to just navigate through. Not that there's not construction or traffic, but Omaha, just you fly through it. It's awesome.
Well, I support the hardworking road construction members here in Lincoln.
I think they're wonderful people.
I think they do a fantastic job keeping our roads in order.
The problem is they're just doing their job. Well, the fact that you've got a road, every other road, main road, that has some sort of form of construction on it blocks apart is the problem.
I say pick better roads, Schmitty. I think it's still 10 to 15 minutes everywhere in Lincoln. In LA, it seems to be an hour everywhere. So
to go 3 miles.
Yeah.
Back tomorrow. Talk to you at 4. Thanks for tuning in.